I know. I said it would take the force of a total solar system to attract the power away from my ship. We're at the very beginning. The new start of a solar system. Outside, the atoms are rushing towards each other, fusing, coagulating, until minutes later, collections of matter are created. And so the process goes on until dust is formed. Dust then becomes solid entity, a new birth of a sun and its planets. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about The Edge of Destruction by David Whitaker. Now, before I begin, we need to talk about a certain term in the television business. A bottled episode is an episode which is used the minimum amount of cost as possible. Usually they are made up of sets used for the show already and has very little, if not no, supporting cast, only using our regulars. Now, The Edge of Destruction is a bottle episode, and a lot of people don't like bottle episodes, thinking they're just the cheap fillers of any series. But I personally find some of the best episodes in TV are bottle episodes, and The Edge of Destruction is, in my opinion, no exception. This is a fantastically written story that just has our four main casts. So our episode starts up with our cast waking up as they've just had a crash. Now, some of them don't seem to remember everything. Ian seems to have forgotten everything that's happened and doesn't realise that they've been travelling through space and time. Susan doesn't remember Barbara at first, asking who she is. And then they find the Doctor unconscious on the floor. And when he wakes up later, he says that he'd been knocked at the back of the head. Now that puts a lot of mystery into our little bottle episode here. Now the atmosphere in this is absolutely phenomenal. With the TARDIS set very quiet, and it's just empty rooms, and just how forecast you get a really great claustrophobic feel in this episode. And it's helped by the story, which is this very claustrophobic feeling. Especially Barbara. Barbara, played by Jacqueline Hill here, this is one of her standout performances. In fact, the entire cast of this episode, especially Carole Ford, who plays Susan, is a massive standout in this one. Susan in the past few episodes and the episodes that are going to come, they've kind of been written her character as if she's just the child of the crew. That she is the teenager, the gullible teenager in the crew compared to the adult characters. But in the pilot episode and in this episode, they bring back a lot of mystery to her. In here, her personality seems to crisscross between being a cowardly girl who just really cares for her friends and grandfather. And then sometimes she's kind of like possessed and her face is very emotionless. And there's a great bit where she convinces Barbara that there might be an entity living inside one of them. And the way she says it kind of suggests that she is the one that's possessed. Now, in any other case, this would be really confusing. This would be, with any other character, it will be very out of place. But however, Susan, like the Doctor in these first few episodes, the whole mystery is that we don't know who they are. So whether this is out of character for them at this moment in time, we don't know, which really works to the episode's strengths. Ian and Barbara obviously are our eyes in this episode, seeing as they're the ones they're the people, they're the humans, they're the ones that we go through. The Doctor wakes up and the Doctor's convinced that Ian and Barbara sabotage the ship so that they could get the Doctor to take him back to London in 1963. Now, I love how this episode really shows you the Doctor's point as well. just how vicious he would go as well. He's kind of like the main villain in this story, really, especially in part 2. So the Doctor's trying to, let me get into the thing. So there are bickering about whose fault is it and stuff. And Barbara, Jacqueline Hill, gives a massive great performance where she's like, how dare you accuse us of us of trying to betray you? Don't you realise if it wasn't for us to helping you in the Cave of Skulls and in Skaro's that you'd be dead? You should be getting on your hands and knees and thanking us. That was a brilliant line. And then Barbara seems to close herself off. She doesn't talk that much, and you see her when people are talking to her. She turns her head, and she closes herself off. It's very subtly done. It's not like it's a big part of the story until the very end, but it's kind of like she's a little bit depressed, which is fair enough because she's been kidnapped and taken away from her home. But Jacqueline Hill's performance really nails it. So then they see that the clocks are all melted. It's very hard to understand. Well, the first time you see it, it's not very clear. I think what they were trying to do is that the clock face was melted, and they can't see it. But the black and white cinematography in that particular shot wasn't very well handled. But then Ian looks at his watch and he sees it's all blurred, and the point gets through. So I don't think it really needed that clip. And then the Doctor gives them all a drink, which he doesn't tell them is actually like a sleeping drug. So he makes sure that they're all asleep, and he goes to check in the TARDIS, and then suddenly you just see hands grabbing his neck. Turns around and ends the cliffhanger. Now, because we didn't know who if there was anybody else in the TARDIS, this was a very great cliffhanger. But it turns out in the next episode that it was Ian, and he seemed to be sleepwalking, and trying to stop the Doctor from using the TARDIS because he also got an electric shock. But there, I don't think that was very well handled, but it does help to get the Doctor more anxious at getting them to leave. Now, there's a really great bit where he just gets fed up with them, and he's like, you were trying to stop me. I caught you in the act, so now I'm chucking you off the TARDIS, and we don't know where we are at the end of it, but you just get off. I don't bloody care about your problems anymore. And the Doctor's like a proper villain in this. Now, after they realise that it wasn't them, the Doctor seems to calm down and stuff, and the whole wall of what he calls the fault locator lights up, and they realise then it wasn't Ian or Barbara that did it. The way the Doctor words it is that they were all to blame, but especially when you find out in the resolution, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But there you go. And then after the Doctor's like realising what's happened, Barbara walks off, and there's a great bit where Ian demands the Doctor to apologise for the way he's been treating Barbara, and the Doctor's like, there's no time. I need to think about this problem. We can't have any brash things going on. And Ian's like, what's so brash about apologising? And that's a very good line. You see that a lot in real life. People who are just so stubborn that they just won't apologise, and they think that they are in the right all the time. So the Doctor here is very, very, probably the most human. Yeah, William Hartnell is probably the most human Doctor, in my opinion, for the better, mind you. So then we find out then what's going wrong. Now, this is a spoiler if you aren't planning to watch this, but I will say it's very, very, very disappointing. I used to hate it, But now I love it just for how hilariously stupid it is. It turns out that one of the switches in the TARDIS that brings, they call it the fast return switch, which the way he describes it, that it quickly puts them back to the setting that they were before. Now the switch in it was broken and the TARDIS was just constantly going back, and this whole thing about the watches disappearing, the photolocator lighting up, was the TARDIS trying to warn the TARDIS crew that they were crashing. But because it was a switch and not the actual TARDIS itself, it thought that it was the people, the drivers, who were doing it on purpose. It's a really stupid scene, but I can't help but laugh, and especially how, like, the TARDIS design of the console is very well designed, and there's a lot of like stickers, like with the Geiger counter. There's a lot of, like, it says Geiger counter in like a professional writing, and then you got the danger stuff. We got the fast return switch, and every time I see it, I laugh because it's got the fast return switch, and then it's got the words fast return in like pen marker on the top of it. And I don't know, I just, every time I see it, I laugh my ass off. So that was the story. Now let's talk about the directing. Episode 1 is directed by Richard Martin. Now, if you remember, he directed some episodes of the Daleks. Now, you can tell that he is much more comfortable with the camera. He moves the camera a lot. He has people in the background and stuff. And there's a lot of great lighting in the first episode. Frank Cox then directs the second episode. Now, Frank Cox, this was actually his first directorial debut. Now, he clearly isn't as comfortable with the camera. The camera is normally in still places. However, what he makes up is shooting actors. Every actor is like jam-packed into a shot. And personally, I know a lot of people are going to kill me because Richard Martin is highly considered in the Doctor Who community, but I prefer the directing in episode 2 by Frank Cox. I'm sorry, but there's just the way he shoots people, and there's a brilliant bit in the last scene, which is what I recreated, where the Doctor goes on a speech about how the solar system's creating, and scientifically it doesn't work at all, but William Hartnell's acting really nails it. And that bit with the darkening, and the camera just slowly zooms, and William Hartnell just fills up the screen, and he just nails it. So in my opinion, episode 2 is better than episode 1. Now when the episode ends, Barbara actually just like closes herself off, and you can tell there's a lot of healing. Now you can see the Doctor's character fully grown in this story. In An Unearthly Child in the Tribe of Gum, it was him trying, with basically accepting that these humans are going to be around, and in the Dalek, it's about him actually confronting evil and saying, right, I'm going to take a active responsibility on when I confront evil. And here, it's when he really becomes the Doctor that we know and love. He's at the start of this, he's very distrusting of his companions. No other Doctor would treat his companions like this. Like I said, he threatened to throw him off the ship. In fact, it wasn't even a threat. He was going to chuck him off the ship like that. But slowly through the episode, he starts to trust our crew. Now, the last bit with him and Barbara is like, what do you think? What does it matter to you? And then the Doctor's like, as we learn about each other, as we learn about ourselves and stuff. And that bit at the end where they're talking on the sofa is very sweet. Jacqueline Hill and William Hartnell really nail it in the performance. and Frank Cox with his camera on people is very well handled, and the script by David Whitaker absolutely astonishing. So overall, The Edge of Destruction, it might have some flaws, especially in the logistics and the plotting. However, the character developments, the claustrophobic atmosphere, all that is just spot on. And I actually consider it a very underrated story. You don't hear a lot of people talk about this one. And it's only 2 episodes long as well. For classic Doctor Who, that's really short. And like, I think it's like half an hour each for episodes. So this is just as short as a normal, shorter than a normal movie. So I would say highly recommend it. The DVD comes in a box set with the Daleks and the Unearthly Child, so you can actually watch the Doctor's story arc up to this point. So now that's out of the way, we're going to get back into some historicals, and I'll see you again for Marco Polo. I hope you enjoyed on the Doctor Who Marathon. See you all next time.